from the Post-Millennial. Stacey Abrams, not-for-profit, launches direct action against Cop City. This is Stacey Abrams, who some speculate will run for president. We'll see. Encouraging people to join Stop Cop City, the hashtag used by the terror organization, the terrorists, some who are not even from the United States, who firebombed Cop City and were charged with domestic terrorism. So here's what I find fascinating. We have Whoopi Goldberg saying what Tucker Carlson did in publishing proof of the lies from the Democratic Party and the establishment, the corporate press, saying that should be illegal. My question is, how come no one in the mainstream press, none of the Democrats, and we know the answer, of course, but my question is, if we're trying to approach it logically, to ask someone who is not discerning or doesn't understand, how come they're screaming J6 while far-left extremists are firebombing Atlanta, Memphis, and this police facility, this government facility, when you have foreign individuals joining this group and firebombing equipment and attacking cops with explosives? They're talking about something that happened 2 years ago.
Right.
There's an insurrection going on right now. Stacey Abrams' organization is helping organize for the terrorists. They are literally charged with domestic terrorism.
Right.
On more than one occasion, they have been charged with domestic terrorism. And Stacey Abrams is helping. And a Southern Poverty Law Center lawyer was arrested among the terrorists, and the spokesperson for the SPLC posted in support of the terrorists.
Right.
That is not in the mainstream narrative.
No. Honestly, I think that they actually don't see the things that they do. It's not even necessarily that there's a double or an intentional double standard. I think that they legitimately don't think it's a crime when they do it. I think that because most of the time, is this about racism? Is this about social justice?
The government is building a large police training facility, and so they want to. Oh. They've burned down private buildings, private homes. They flipped a guy's truck over and torched it. These are private citizens.
Right.
It's just overt terror, political terror.
Ostensibly, the argument that they give is because it's is environmental. They don't want to cut down the trees.
Well, not completely. It's a mix of things. You've got, depending on who they're talking to, they'll argue, oh, they're trying to deforest.
That's the one.
Then they'll say, oh, it's because cops are racist. Oh, but it's because of police violence, want to defund the police. So it's just basically, you have a national banner, Antifa, international to be honest. They have killed people. Mm-hmm. They've been expanding, and it's nowhere to be seen. No one cares.
Right.
This is the warning I have for everybody. When Stacey Abrams can have an organization advocate for and support overt terrorism, I mean, come on, like they're literally breaking into a government compound and setting equipment on fire and torching it, and there's people from France and Canada who are along with it. Like these are foreign individuals in the United States attacking government property. When that is institutionalized, defended, or outright ignored, like, I gotta say, it sounds like you're losing. The right is losing. If Antifa can and has gotten away with murdering people and burning this stuff down, I mean, as an institution, as an organization, as an idea, where is any kind of counterance to this? So what I mean to say is, Aaron Danielson gets shot and killed in Portland, 30 some odd people in the Summer of Love riots. Mm-hmm. Yes. Some of those people who committed those murders have been brought to justice, but as an ideology, Black Lives Matter and Antifa have still not gotten this degree of scrutiny that January 6th did.
Not even close. And if you remember in 2020, I believe it was in St. Louis, when that mob of Black Lives Matter protesters went to a gated community. They broke the gate down, they rushed inside, and a couple came out on their lawn, the McCluskeys, and there's that kind of iconic imagery of them holding their guns, protecting their property. We all know how that ended up. It was the McCluskeys that ended up getting arrested. It was the McCluskeys that I believe ended up being charged and ended up being the enemies and the villains in that case. And what's interesting is, like, on a sort of macro level, it's almost an identical situation to what happened at the Capitol. I mean, you had a mob of people go into an area where they weren't supposed to be. If the McCluskeys were like the Capitol Police protecting the building, why are the Capitol Police the victims in the January? So, which, you know, by the way, they are, but like, why are the McCluskeys the villains for protecting their property in that situation?
I warned everybody. In 2018, I said, sooner or later, these far-left extremists will come to your home, and the cops will sit there and say, it is easier to arrest the homeowner than it is to deal with a riot.
Yeah.
And we've seen it on multiple occasions. The McCloskeys are a good example. They break onto private property, onto the actual lawn of their building.
Yeah.
And the McCloskeys, who own legal weapons, come out brandishing them saying, get off our property. The McCloskeys are the ones who actually get criminally charged.
Right.
You have the story out of Milwaukee where these BLM rioters who had burned down someone else's house, or I should say set someone else's house on fire twice, show up in front of his house. He brandishes a shotgun through his window. The cops come and arrest him in his own home. I'm sorry, man. Like, maybe I'm completely wrong to say civil war, and it's more like the revolution is happening. It's been happening. It will continue to happen, and sooner or later, you will own nothing, and you will be, well, you'll be very unhappy. But don't worry, the government will give you pills, or they'll flog you unless you say you're happy.
You know, after I got arrested and got out of jail, you know, I started reading the 8-page press release that the FBI wrote on my case and submitted to the media. And then the 30-page sentencing recommendation that the government created on my Class B misdemeanor. And in it, they went through my social media and pulled a great number of tweets and things like that to sort of substantiate, you know, this person's a lunatic with violent tendencies, and look at these things that he said. And they actually pulled a tweet where I said, make your peace right now with the fact that we're in a civil war. We didn't want it. We didn't ask for it, but it's here. And at this point, you better kind of open your eyes and see what's happening. And they're like, you know, he's promoting civil war. This guy is dangerous. And I had to kind of explain to them, number one, if you look carefully, I'm saying it's already here. It's someone else started. It's at your doorstep. But number two, when I talk about a modern civil war, and I think when we talk about a modern civil war, we're not talking about like grabbing your musket and taking out to the streets and starting and shooting people. We're talking about debanking people, freezing people from being able to send and receive money, from being able to exist on social media or exist in the public square, destroying people's reputations.
But that's all the precursor. Look at civil wars throughout history. It doesn't start with one day a guy walks outside and says, you know what? I'm just so darn mad at the president, I'm going to civil war. And then the people go outside with guns and start shooting at each other.
Right.
It happens because tensions between factions, either ideological, political, religious, otherwise, start bubbling up to the point where people then say, I've had enough of you, you're dangerous. When you see roving bands of far left extremists going through cities and firebombing storefronts, this is how it starts. The way it starts is this. You will have a band of ideological extremists. They will grow their ideology. It'll percolate down through the masses throughout the entire country. They'll put up a banner. They'll identify each other. They'll recruit. One day, the extremists will commit very serious crimes. The police, the government, or locals will defend against those crimes, killing one of the extremists. The extremists will use that as evidence among their cult that they are being victimized and must fight back with violent force. Take a look at what happened in Georgia. Far left extremists occupying a forest opened fire on police officers, shooting one of them. These people had burned down private homes already, literally torched houses. They were under construction, for sale houses. I don't think people lived in there. They stopped a guy who was in his truck, a regular old dude, booted him out and flipped it over and set it on fire. Ideological extremists. Then when the police get shot at, they return fire, killing one of the extremists. The corporate press and the activists then say the police assassinated one of our members. A peaceful environmental activist was brutally murdered by the police. And The Guardian was my favorite. They said the police provided no evidence that he was shot. The officer is said to be in stable condition in the hospital. It's like, okay, so the cop got shot by this guy. So we're at that point where there is no right-wing equivalent to Antifa.
No.
Mm-hmm. The closest you ever got was Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys were so smart that when they got into a fight with Antifa, they walked up to the cops and said, here's my name and information. Thanks, officer. And the cops slapped cuffs on him and put him in prison for 4 years. Congratulations. The closest thing you can even get to anywhere near it is January 6th, which is, yes, a riot. A lot of people in the front of the building, violent, and then a lot of people on other sides of the building being let in. And what happens? The federal government pulls out all the stops to destroy anyone in any way associated with that day, if they can.
Do you think it's hard for the public to believe that there can be left-wing domestic terrorists? Because I think back to all of the environmental groups in the 70s that wreaked havoc everywhere. You know, they were extremely active. They burned buildings. They broke into places. Like, it's actually normal for domestic terrorism to be perpetrated by the left. But it seems like because they were the party of, like, peace and love and hippies, somehow we, like, forget to say, oh, wait, they can also have extremists.
I think it's a combination of far left extremists know they're lying. You know, we were talking earlier, I can't remember who said, they don't think it's what they're doing is illegal. They know what they're doing is illegal. They don't care. They think they are morally justified in committing crimes against other people.
Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better way to say it, because I was going to give the same answer that I gave earlier, which is that most of the time that there's violent extremism that comes from the left, it's often some way rooted to some sort of social injustice, which often is tied to race. And anytime the topic of race is involved, it seems like anything goes and anything can be justified. I mean, you can literally loot and kill and beat people up and burn buildings down. And if people like us say, what the hell is going on? People say, "Oh, these people have been experiencing injustice for generations."
Even when you're
whether
it's race or whether it's LGBT issues or whether it's class, it's always a Trojan horse for some type of oppression, and it's always going to be moving leftwards. We live in the logic of Herbert Marcuse. You can read about this. Herbert Marcuse wrote it up in an essay from the '60s called "On Tolerance" or "Pure Tolerance." And essentially it says it's okay for the left to do whatever. It's consequentialism. It's just they're looking for a result, which is their policies instituted. And if their policies fail, that's fine because it moves the dialectic along. That's all it is. It's the left is entirely built on a dialectic system. So as long as they can implement their policies, they're fine with lying. They're fine with whatever means, because at their core, they're not liberals. They don't believe in individual rights the way that we do. They don't believe that the rights that you have come from your humanity or from God or whatever. They believe that all rights come from the state. That means that your rights are just gifts. So there's no reason to argue about that you have the right for this or you have the right for that. You have whatever right the state says.
I think those ideologies are not as relevant as a lot of people think. They're certainly wielded as a weapon to guide and control these masses, but I believe that the far left extremists are chaos and nothing more.
The foot soldiers, yeah, but the people that are calling the shots, the people that are informing the ideas, that are writing the books that are teaching children, these people are religious fundamentalists about
I disagree.
Not totally.
I think that the reason they're going after kids with this gender ideology stuff and the far left stuff is literally just to destroy them. You don't have a child sterilize themselves if you're trying to create an army or to control a machine, because you're cutting the root out from the plant you need. What is the outcome of all of this will be the complete destruction of the West of American culture. In which case
that's the goal.
Exactly. So there's not going to be any kind of communist utopia. There's not going to be equality. There's going to be burning rubble, and they won't be here. They'll be in China. So they use leftist ideology, in my opinion, as a means to an end. But if you actually had people adhering to a structure of this ideology, there would be a structure to it. However, what we end up seeing is there's no ideology. They change things on a whim. One day it's Wimixin, next day it's women with a Y. One day it's women. Now the joke is women plus.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Women plus. So if there was a consistency to their ideology and goals, I would agree they actually believe this stuff. But watching this stuff over the past 10 years and seeing there is no start point and end point, I'm like, oh, all it is a chaotic, destructive force that spreads and consumes and destroys.
The chaos is intentional because, like I said before, that happy people or happy societies don't have a lot of revolutions. If you have a society that's working with people that trust each other, with a high trust society where you don't have significant amounts of economic disparity, and you have everybody feeling like they kind of have the same culture and the same kind of, or at least are free to express their cultures, you don't need a revolution. Mm-hmm. You don't need to tear everything down. But if you have enough people that feel like they are unhappy with their lives, they're unhappy with their station for whatever reason, whether it be because they believe they were born in the wrong body, or they believe that they live in a white supremacist society, or whether they believe that the man is the reason that they can't get ahead and it's the rich people, blah, blah, blah. Whatever reason weapon you can use to sow discord in the society is the intent and the goal, because the discord makes people want to revolt. They want a revolution that way.
But there is an inconsistency as it applies to political lines, because they don't embrace the discord or the sense of oppression when it comes to issues that bother people on the right. I mean,
yeah.
If you go back and you look at 2020 again, and Black Lives Matter and all the destruction that was done in the name of racial justice, but they can't seem to wrap their head around why anybody would become inflamed to commit violence on January 6th. So the question that I've always wondered is, and I don't condone the violence of January 6th, I never have, but the question is, why is it okay to commit violence because some black people feel like they're having some kind of experience in this country that is unsatisfying to them, but you can't wrap your head around the fact that there's an enormous group of people who believe that their election and their vote was being stolen, and that they thought that a fake president was being installed through a stolen election.
It's intentional hierarchy. There's the in-group and the out-group. The communists, the party, like the Democrats, whatever you want to call them. If you want to call them Democrats, doesn't matter. But the point is, if you're in the in-group, they make whatever excuses for your behavior. If you're in the out-group, then you're not even a person. Like,
right.
We're going through a Maoist-style cultural revolution. And if you go back and listen to Mao's speeches or read his speeches, he talks about like the people and the democracy, and that's only applied to the actual people that are in the party. Everyone else is the enemy, and that's the dynamic that we have here. When the Democrats talk about we're worried about our democracy, they are talking about the Democrats and the Democrats only. When they're talking, and everyone that's trying to destroy our democracy are the people that are trying to do things that the Democrats don't want. If you do things the Democrats don't want, that is destroying our democracy.
When they say we, that is not referring to you.
Yeah.
It's referring to them.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.